Title: People keep vanishing in these woods, and no one knows why. Part 1: The First Disappearance. Introduction: They say the forest doesn't want to be found, that its roots twist like secrets, its shadows hide more than just the absence of light. And for decades, people have entered the Briar Glen woods and never come back. No bodies, no blood, just the silence of the trees. Some believe it's just local legend. Others know better, because once you hear the whisper from the trees, it's already too late. Body: The first time I heard about the Briar Glen disappearances, I was 12. My older cousin, Mark, told me the story around a dying campfire, the shadows and the flames dancing across his face, making his grin seem larger and more cruel. They don't scream, he had said. They just vanish. At the time, I thought he was trying to scare me. And he was. But the part that stuck with me wasn't the story. It was the way our parents had gone quiet when they overheard. The way my aunt had pulled him aside and hissed, "We don't talk about that." Years passed. The forest remained. And so did the stories. It wasn't until I was 27 that I returned to Briar Glen. Life had happened, college, work, cities. But when my childhood friend Ellie reached out after years of silence, I found myself packing my bags and driving back into that sleepy mountain town. "I need your help," she had said on the phone, her voice barely above a whisper. "Ben's missing, and he was last seen near the woods." Ben was her younger brother, a goofball, too curious for his own good, and now, apparently, gone. The local sheriff had shrugged it off as a hiker getting lost. "Happens all the time," he said with drawl that smelled of indifference. "People go off trail, think they know better than nature." But Ellie didn't believe that, and neither did I, because Ben wasn't the first. He was the 12th. We stood at the forest edge just after sunrise, morning fog hanging thick like a curtain between us and the trees. "This is where his GPS tracker last pinged," Ellie said, holding out her phone. Her hands trembled, even though the air was warm. 2 days ago. I looked ahead. The path was worn, but not from hikers. From something else. The soil was uneven, as though it had been churned recently. I crouched, running a hand along the ground. Damp, cold, and yet dry leaves sat untouched on top. Something didn't feel right. We ventured deeper. The sounds of civilization faded with every step. No birds, no rustling animals. Just the crunch of our boots and the occasional snap of twigs underfoot. Ellie was quiet, her eyes scanning every tree, every branch. I stayed close behind her, trying to keep track of where we'd come from. But the forest, it shifted. I swear, trees seemed to rearrange themselves. Landmarks disappeared the moment I looked away. After about 20 minutes, we reached a clearing. In the center was a small, moss-covered stone. It looked ancient, older than the town, older than anything that belonged in these woods. Strange markings were carved into its surface, looping and curling like vines. Symbols I didn't recognize. Symbols that made my skin crawl. "Ben's bag," Ellie breathed, darting forward. She knelt beside the stone, reaching for a torn strap. It was unmistakably his. The patch he'd sewn on as a joke, the initials scribbled on the side. But it was dry. No dew. No dirt, as if it had just been placed there. "We need to go," I said, glancing around. She hesitated, then nodded. We turned back, or tried to, but the trees, they were wrong. The path we had taken had vanished. There was no break in the dense foliage, no footprints, no direction. It was as though we'd never walked here at all. And then the wind picked up, except it wasn't wind. It was voices, not loud, not distinct, just a soft murmuring, hundreds of whispers curling through the branches like smoke. Ellie grabbed my arm. "You hear that?" I nodded slowly, not trusting my voice. We turned in a slow circle, trying to find the source. The sound was everywhere, surrounding us, crawling under our skin. Then a scream, sharp, human, close. "Ben!" Ellie yelled, sprinting toward the sound. "Wait!" But she was already gone. I chased after her, pushing through low-hanging branches and clawing vines. The forest closed in tighter, the trees leaning like eavesdroppers. The air grew heavy, thick with something sweet and rotting. I caught sight of her just ahead, frozen in place. I skidded to a stop beside her. There, between two gnarled trees, was a man, naked, pale, covered in dirt. He was crouched, facing away from us, his body trembling. "Ben," Ellie whispered. The man turned slowly. It wasn't Ben. His eyes were milky white, his lips cracked and bleeding. Scratches covered his chest, as though he'd tried to claw something out from under his skin. But the worst part, the part that made my stomach twist, was that he looked familiar. He looked like one of the missing, from years ago. A face I remembered from a grainy newspaper article. David Morrow, vanished in 2011. He opened his mouth. "No, way out," he rasped. Then, without warning, he lunged. Ellie screamed. I grabbed her arm and yanked her back, stumbling as the man collapsed where we had just stood. He didn't chase. He just lay there, shivering, whispering nonsense to the moss-covered ground. We didn't wait. We ran. Branches tore at our clothes. Roots grabbed at our ankles. But we didn't stop until we burst out of the trees and back into daylight. We collapsed beside Ellie's car, panting, staring back at the tree line. It was silent again. No man, no whispers, no trace, just the wind and the leaves. That night, we sat in her living room, neither of us speaking. "What the hell was that?" she asked finally. I didn't know, but I remembered his words. No way out. The forest had given us a warning, a taste, and something told me it wouldn't let us off that easy next time, because Ben was still out there. And now, so were we. Part 2. Ellie hadn't slept. Her eyes were sunken, her fingers trembling around the chipped coffee mug she kept refilling without drinking. I didn't blame her. After what we'd seen, after the man in the woods, nothing felt real anymore. And yet, we both knew we had to go back. I spent the night researching everything I could find about Briar Glen. Missing persons reports stretched back decades, and most have been quietly closed without answers. Some entries were just a name and a date, with the only consistency being one detail. Every person had disappeared near the forest. No remains, no personal items, no calls, no sightings. Nothing, except the stone. I found references to a local legend dating back to the 1800s. A settler's journal described it as a sacred rock, hidden deep in the glen. People claimed it was cursed, that those who touched it were claimed by the woods. Most historians dismissed it as folklore, lumped in with tales of witches and forest spirits. But we had seen it, touched it. I didn't tell Ellie that I had run my fingers across the carved symbols before she'd found Ben's bag. Something about it had called to me, like a memory I didn't know I had. "I'm going back," I said. Ellie looked up sharply. "You're what?" "I think there's more to that stone. It's connected to everything. And if Ben's alive, we're not going to find him from your living room." She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I'm coming with you." We packed properly this time. Flashlights, water, knives, and printed maps. Ellie brought Ben's notebook, which he always carried on hikes. She hadn't been able to look at it since he disappeared, but now she clutched it like a lifeline. We parked in the same spot and stepped into the forest under gray skies. The trees loomed larger, more hostile than before. I tried to shake the feeling that they were watching us. We followed the same trail, but it twisted in unfamiliar ways. Ellie kept checking her compass and frowning. "This isn't right," she murmured. "The path's changing." I didn't argue. The forest bent space like it bent reason. After an hour of silence, we stumbled into the clearing again. The stone was still there, waiting. But this time, someone else was with it. A woman stood near the stone, barefoot and thin, wearing a ragged gray dress. Her hair was long and tangled, her face streaked with mud. She turned slowly when we entered the clearing. Ellie took a step back. I raised my flashlight, but the woman didn't flinch. "You're not supposed to be here," she said. "Neither are you," I replied. Her eyes narrowed. "I never left." Ellie's voice cracked. "Have you seen a boy? Brown hair, blue jacket. Ben. The woman tilted her head. Ben, the forest took him. Ellie lunged forward. Where is he? The woman didn't move. You shouldn't touch the stone again. It remembers. What does that mean? I asked. She pointed at me. You touched it. It knows you now. It'll follow you, even when you're not here. My blood ran cold. What are you? I was like you once, she said, voice distant. Curious. Stubborn. But the forest doesn't care about reasons. Only balance. She turned and walked into trees, disappearing between two thick trunks as if swallowed. We ran after her, but there was nothing, just more woods. We returned to the stone, panting. Ellie opened Ben's notebook, flipping through sketches and journal entries. Near the back, she stopped. What is this? It was a drawing of the stone, almost identical. Ben had found it before. There were notes scribbled beside it. Hollow underneath? Echoes? Symbols. Ancient? Trees grow toward it? He'd been here. He'd touched it too. That meant the forest had known him. I stared at the markings. They weren't random. There was a pattern, repetitive sequences of spirals and slashes. I reached into my backpack and pulled out a piece of paper to copy them. Then something moved behind us. We spun around, flashlights sweeping the trees. Nothing, but the forest was breathing. I swear it was. The wind had died, but the branches swayed as if moved by unseen hands. Ellie whispered, Did you hear that? I nodded. There were footsteps. Soft, wet, circling us. Then the voice returned. Whispering. Not like last time. This time it was clear. One word. Names. It was saying our names. Over and over. Ellie, Ellie, Ellie. James, James. I turned and slammed my flashlight toward the sound, but the light flickered, died. Total darkness. Then the screaming started. It wasn't Ellie. It came from the woods. A long, guttural wail that seemed too large to belong to a human throat. It echoed, bouncing off invisible walls, surrounding us. Ellie grabbed my hand, and we ran, not knowing where, not caring. Branches slashed our faces. Roots tripped us. We crashed through the forest like prey fleeing a predator, breathless and blind. Eventually, we collapsed near a fallen tree. The whispers had stopped, so had the screams. I flicked the flashlight back on. It worked again. Ellie was shaking, clutching Ben's notebook to her chest. We have to leave, she said. This place, it's not natural. I didn't disagree, but I wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. I looked at the map. There's a ranger station nearby. An old one. If Ben was running from something, maybe he went there. She hesitated, then nodded. Fine, but if anything else happens. We leave, I promised. We moved cautiously now, scanning every shadow, every branch. The deeper we went, the colder it became, despite the summer heat. Fog crept low along the ground, thickening the air. The station appeared through the mist like a ghost. Half collapsed, wooden beams rotting, door hanging open. Inside was chaos. Paper strewn across the floor. Broken glass. A moldy cot in the corner. But there were signs of recent activity. Cans, wrappers, and a fire pit with cold ash. Someone had been here. Ellie found a photo pinned to the wall. An old black and white image of park rangers standing in front of the station. One of them looked like the man we'd seen in the forest, David Morrow, but that wasn't possible. He'd vanished over a decade ago. A rustling sound came from the corner. We froze. Something moved behind the desk. I stepped forward and slowly looked over. A boy, curled up, pale, eyes wide. Ben, Ellie gasped. He flinched, didn't speak. She ran to him, pulling him into a hug. He didn't resist, but he didn't hug back either. Ben, it's me. It's Ellie. We found you. His lips moved. Don't be loud, he whispered. Why? He looked at me. It hears everything. The forest. Ben, what happened to you? He shook his head. It's not just a place. It's alive, and it doesn't forget. Ellie held his face in her hands. We're getting you out of here. But Ben didn't move. You touched the stone, didn't you? I asked. He nodded slowly. It called to me. I thought it would show me something. Did it? He looked at me with hollow eyes. Yes, it showed me what it's done. What it is. It takes people feed itself. It doesn't kill them. It keeps them. Changes them. What do you mean keeps them? You saw one. The man by the stone. That was David. He's been in the forest for 13 years. But time's different here. You don't age the same. Ellie covered her mouth. Ben clutched her sleeve. We have to go. Now, before it notices we're together. It doesn't like that. We helped him up and crept out of the station. The forest was waiting. No whispers this time. Only silence. But it was a different kind of silence. Expectant. Like the calm before something horrible. As we walked, Ben began to hum. A low, slow tune. What is that? Ellie asked. The forest sings it, he said, to keep you calm, so you won't run. Ben, how we get out? He didn't answer. Instead, he looked behind us and smiled. It's already here. Part 3. The forest doesn't let go. Ben's smile wasn't right. It didn't reach his eyes, and it lingered just a second too long. I didn't know if it was fear, madness, or something worse. Ellie didn't notice. She was too busy holding his arm, leading him down the overgrown trail, eyes darting between the trees like she expected them to close in on us. The deeper we moved into the woods, the more I realized we weren't heading back the way we came. I stopped and looked around. The path was gone. No markers. No broken branches from our frantic run. Just endless, knotted trees. Ben, this isn't the way to the car, I said. I know, he answered calm. That way is closed. Ellie spun around. What do you mean closed? He looked up at the canopy. It shifted. The forest. I asked. Ben nodded. It doesn't want us to leave. That cold feeling crept into my stomach again. The fog had thickened around our ankles. The air tasted stale, metallic. Ellie gripped Ben tighter and picked up the pace. We walked for what felt like hours. The light never changed, stuck in a sickly, permanent dusk. The compass spun wildly, useless. We relied on instinct now, and whatever instinct told us, it wasn't good. We came to another clearing, but it wasn't empty. More stones, smaller ones, arranged in a perfect circle. Each one carved with symbols like the larger monolith we'd found. Ben broke free from Ellie and stepped toward them. She shouted, but he didn't stop. Their names, he said. Each one. I moved closer, crouched to read one. The symbol didn't make sense at first. Then I tilted my head. It looked like a person, arms outstretched, mouth open, screaming. Ellie whispered, What the hell is this place? Ben walked around the circle. It's where they listen, where the forest remembers. A sound rose behind us, a low, guttural moan. Then another, and another. Figures emerged from between the trees, shadows shaped like people, but wrong. Their bodies were twisted, limbs too long, faces stretched in agony. Some were silent, others whimpered, like they were trapped in themselves. Ellie backed away, dragging Ben with her. I stayed frozen, watching them gather, not attacking, just watching. Then one stepped forward. Its face was familiar. David Morrow. I breathed. The thing that had once been David raised a hand. His skin was gray, tight over bone. His eyes were gone, just hollow pits. But his mouth moved. Don't run. His voice was like wind through dead leaves. Dry, broken. Why? I asked. The forest follows. Ben screamed. A high, terrified sound. The figures flinched but didn't move. Ellie pulled him away, but he fell, clutching his head. It's in me, he cried. It's inside. The forest answered with a shriek, so loud the trees bent. My ears rang. The stones in the circle trembled, some cracking down the middle. The figures vanished into the mist as fast as they had come. I ran to Ben. He was shaking, eyes rolled back. Ellie sobbed. Help him, please. I didn't know how. Then his body went still, silent. I touched his neck. He was breathing, barely. Ellie cradled him, whispering his name. I scanned the trees. We need shelter, not for warmth, not for sleep, to hide. We found a hollow under a massive, rotted log, just large enough for the three of us. Ellie laid Ben down gently. He didn't stir. What's happening to him? She asked, voice barely audible. I think the forest is trying to take him. She looked at me like I'd punched her. He's my brother. I know. Then fix it. I didn't have an answer. I stared out through the crack in the log, watching the fog slither past like something alive. The woods were pulsing, breathing. Somewhere far off, a branch snapped. A laugh followed. Then silence. That night, or what we assumed was night. Ben woke up. He sat up slowly, eyes still dazed. It doesn't want you yet, he said to me. What? He looked at Ellie. But it wants you. She froze. What do you mean? Ben reached into his jacket and pulled something out. A scrap of paper, damp and torn. A sketch of the stone. The same symbols. But next to it, 3 stick figures. One crossed out, one circled. Ben pointed. That's me, he said, finger on the crossed out one. Ellie's mouth opened. No words came out. I looked at the circled one. It was taller. Me, I shook my head. No, I didn't make that. I didn't either, Ben said. He held it up to the light, and on the back, something was scrawled in a strange language. But I understood it. My name, not written, but felt. Ellie backed away. What does it want with you? I don't know, I said, but I think it marked me when I touched the stone. Ben nodded. It chooses, feeds, changes. I looked at him. And you? Where are you now? He looked up, and his eyes were black. No whites, just darkness. But then they blinked, and he was Ben again. I don't know. We left the log at dawn, or what we guessed was dawn. The forest had gone quiet again, but the tension hadn't left. We moved quickly, trying to find anything familiar. Eventually, we came across an old hunting cabin, half buried in moss. Inside was dust, rusted tools, and a broken rifle. But it had a door, walls, a place to regroup. While Ellie cleaned Ben's face and forced him to eat something, I found a journal tucked behind a broken stove. The pages were yellow, brittle. The last entry was dated 1972. Day 48. I don't know who I am anymore. The forest has taken my voice. My reflection. I see myself in the trees now, watching me. I'm afraid if I sleep, I'll wake up someone else. Then one final line. If you find this, leave, or it will remember you too. I showed it to Ellie. Her hands shook. We need to go. Now. I don't care if we walk in circles. We can't stay. I agreed. We set out again, this time using the moss on trees, sun positioning. Anything to find a pattern. Hours passed. We marked trees, but when we circled back, the marks were gone. The forest wasn't letting us leave. Ben began humming again, that same tune. Ellie grabbed his shoulders. Ben, stop it, please. He flinched. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I stared at him. Where did you learn it? It's not a song, he said. It's a call. To what? He opened his mouth, but didn't speak. Instead, he pointed behind me. I turned. The trees were moving, not swaying, shifting, rearranging, paths closing, new ones forming. And standing in the center of them, tall and still, was another stone, larger, covered in fresh blood. It hadn't been there before. Ben stepped toward it. Ben, no! Ellie shouted, grabbing his arm. He screamed again, this time in pure agony, falling to his knees. The ground cracked beneath him, roots writhing upward, wrapping around his ankles. I rushed forward, hacking at the roots with my knife. They bled. Ellie pulled him away, and we ran, the ground behind us splitting like dry earth in a quake. The forest roared. Trees fell. Shadows screamed. We didn't stop running. Not until we burst through a break in the trees and saw the road. The real road. A car passed us. Then another. We were out. For now. But as I looked back, I saw it. At the tree line, that same tall figure, watching, smiling. The forest had let us go, but not completely, because deep inside, I still heard the hum, and I remembered every word it whispered. Part 4. It follows even after the exit. 3 days passed. We should have felt safe, back in the comfort of streetlights and the constant hum of civilization. But nothing was normal. Not anymore. Ben barely spoke. He sat by the window in our shared motel room, staring into the trees across the highway. They weren't those woods, but he watched them like he expected someone to step out of them any minute. Ellie never let him out of her sight. I hadn't slept properly. Not once. Every time I closed my eyes, I was back there, fog curling around my ankles, whispers in my ears, the taste of soil in my mouth. Worse, the dreams weren't always mine. I saw things I shouldn't, things from inside the forest, things still watching us. One night, while Ellie was in shower, Ben turned to me and said something that chilled me more than anything the forest ever did. It's not done with us. I swallowed hard. What do you mean? It left a part of itself inside us. Seeds. Ellie stepped out of the bathroom in time to hear that. Her face went pale. You're scaring me, Ben. I'm scared too. That night, the motel lights flickered. We heard scratching at the door. When I finally looked through the peephole, there was no one there. Only claw marks on the outside wood. We left the next morning. I wanted answers, and I knew where to get them. The local library, barely touched since the 80s, had a dusty archive section that smelled like mold and old secrets. I found newspaper clippings. Dozens of them. Most were small. Boy disappears during hike. Couple never returns from weekend camping trip. Park ranger goes missing near restricted area. One every few years. Until the last decade, then they increased. 3, then 5, then 10. The pattern was clear. Something in those woods was waking up, feeding more often, growing bold. Ellie pointed to one clipping from 1972. A man named Marcus Rell disappeared in the exact same area. No body was ever found. But what made the article stand out were his last words, spoken to a friend 2 days before he vanished. The trees, remember. They know your name after you speak it. We were all silent after reading that. Ellie finally said, "What do we do with this?" "Find someone who knows more," I replied. "Someone who survived it longer than we did." That led us to Walter Keene. He was listed in one of the articles as a forest researcher who spent 30 years studying those woods before abruptly resigning. He lived alone now, just outside town, with enough warning signs posted around his property to keep the curious away. It took some begging and $300 to get him to even open the door. He stared at us for a long time before speaking. "You went in, didn't you?" We nodded. "And it let you out," he said, almost himself. "That's rare. What's in there?" I asked. Walter didn't answer immediately. He poured himself a drink and sat. "It's old, older than the trees. The land remembers what we forget. Blood spilled, secrets buried, worship offered. Something was fed for generations in that forest. And when they stopped feeding it, it started feeding itself." Ellie's voice trembled. "What does it want?" "To be remembered and obeyed." I told him about the stones, the symbols, the shadows. He looked at me sharply. "Did it touch you?" "I touched it." He flinched like I'd slapped him. "Then it marked you." I took out the paper Ben had found. Walter stared at the drawing, his eyes wide. "I've seen these symbols. They're names, not human ones. Names of things that came before." He turned the page over. When he saw the marks on the back, he went quiet. "This one's yours," he whispered. "It knows you now." Ben stood abruptly. "Then how do we stop it?" "You don't." "Then why are we here?" Ellie cried. Walter exhaled slowly. "There might be a way to delay it, to confuse it. You have to go back." "No," I said instantly. "You must. Burn what you found. Destroy the stones. The circle. If you're lucky, it'll forget you. Or at least stop following." None of us liked it, but the truth hung heavy between us. We had to go back. Not to survive, just to stop what was already chasing us. We returned at nightfall. The sky over the forest was unnaturally dark, no stars, no moon, just a thick black sheet. I took the lead this time. The moment we crossed the tree line, the sound changed. No wind, no insects, no breathing. Even the air held its breath. We found the circle again. The stones still stood, though some were cracked. The symbols glowed faintly, pulsing with a heartbeat we couldn't hear but felt. Ben stepped into the center. "This is where I woke up," he said. "It took something for me here." Ellie lit the lantern. I poured gasoline around the base of the stones. My hands trembled, but I didn't stop. When I struck the match and dropped it, nothing happened. The flame fizzled, died. We tried again. Again. Still nothing. "It won't let you," Ben whispered. "You're part of it now." And then we heard footsteps. Not one set. Many. They came from all directions. Figures moved between trees, taller now, more solid. Not shadows anymore. They had skin, eyes, teeth, but they weren't people. They were people. I saw David's face again, then someone else's. A woman I'd never met, smiling too wide, eyes all black. They formed a circle around the stones, mimicking us. Then they started humming, that same song. Ben dropped to his knees, hands over his ears. Ellie screamed, "Stop! Leave him alone!" They kept humming. The stones pulsed brighter. Then, one by one, the figures stopped. They turned to me. The humming ceased. Then, in unison, they whisper my name. "Your name." I stepped back. They moved forward. But Ben stood. "I'll take it," he said. They froze. "I'll take the mark." Something in the woods howled. Wind slammed through the clearing. The fire that hadn't started before suddenly roared to life. The stones screamed as they cracked, crumbled. Ben's eyes glowed. He smiled, finally genuinely. I remember now. Then the ground swallowed him. Just like that. Gone. The figures vanished. Ellie collapsed, sobbing. I dragged her out of the forest, through the smoke and the collapsing trees. We made it out. Again. But we both knew this wasn't the end. Because when I closed my eyes, I still saw them, smiling, waiting. And the last thing Ben ever said echoed in my skull. The forest never forgets. Part 5. The forest never forgets. I see Ben in my dreams now. Not the Ben we knew. Not really. It's his face. But there's something else behind the eyes. Something old, cold. He stands in the middle of that broken stone circle, his voice barely audible over the whispering winds. "You left me," he says, but he's smiling. I wake up drenched in sweat every time. Ellie and I haven't spoken much since that night. We moved into a new apartment far from town, far from the woods. She doesn't look out windows anymore. I don't sleep near mirrors. But it follows. At first, it was small things. Branches tapping on windows when there was no wind. Muddy footprints in the hallway when no one had gone outside. I started seeing the symbol again, the one Ben had drawn. It showed up in frost on the bathroom mirror, in the foam of my coffee, carved into a tree trunk at the park near our building. We left again. Changed numbers, used aliases, wiped our digital presence as best we could. But it always found us. Not directly, not with claws or teeth, but in thoughts, in dreams, in guilt, because Ben had taken the mark. But I had brought the forest out with me. We were in a diner on the edge of a desert town when it happened again. A man in a ragged coat approached our booth, his eyes bloodshot and distant. "You broke the circle," he mumbled. "It doesn't sleep anymore." I asked him who he was. He didn't answer. He only dropped a piece of crumpled paper onto our table. On it was a charcoal drawing of the stones. But they weren't destroyed in this version. They were rebuilt. Bigger. More. A second circle. Before I could ask anything, the man turned and walked out. We followed, but when we stepped outside, he was gone. No cars. No footprints. Just wind. Ellie didn't sleep that night. I barely did. In the morning, we found a note under our motel door. No name, no sender. "You must finish what was started. You must close the second gate." I stared at it for a long time before turning to her. We have to go back. Her eyes filled with tears. If we go back, we won't come out. I shook my head. If we don't, it will come out. The drive felt endless. Every mile closer brought a thicker fog, a dull ache behind our eyes. By the time we reached the tree line, birds had stopped singing. Everything had gone silent. The forest wasn't waiting this time. It was watching. We entered around dusk. No flashlights. No talking. Just the two of us in the growing sense that we weren't walking through a place, but through a memory that hated being disturbed. We followed the river this time, deeper than we had ever gone before. Trees began to twist in unnatural ways, their trunks forming archways, their bark covered in unfamiliar sigils. The ground was slick with moss, but not green, red. Then we saw it, the second circle. It was enormous, at least 30 stones, all newly erected. The air around them pulsed with heat. In the center stood a figure. Ben. But not Ben. His body glowed faintly, veins filled with dim light. His eyes had no whites, only swirling black pools. He turned slowly as we entered. "You brought the offering," he said, his voice overlapping with something else, deeper, inhuman. Ellie stepped forward. "Ben, it's us. Please, come back." He laughed. "Or it did. I never left. You never understood. The forest gives purpose. It gave me clarity. It showed me what lies beyond death." I whispered. "We destroyed the first gate. It was never about stopping it," he replied, "only preparing for what comes next." Suddenly, the ground shook. The stones began to hum, the same tone as before, but louder, more violent. Figures emerged again from the trees, dozens of them this time, some with faces we recognized. Others wore expressions that belonged in nightmares. They moved in unison, circling the stones, chanting in a language that made my skin crawl. Ben raised a hand. "Join us." I stepped back. "We didn't come to join you." Ellie lit the bottle of accelerant we brought. "We came to finish it." Ben's expression flickered. The thing inside him was surprised. But too late. Ellie hurled the bottle into the center of the stones. Fire erupted, unnatural and blue. The chanting stopped. Screaming filled the air, human and not. The figures writhed, disintegrating into ash. The stones cracked again, light bursting from within them like magma. Ben screamed, not in pain, but in rage. "You think fire can cleanse memory? You think death can stop what has always been?" The light swallowed him, and then everything stopped. No sound, no fire, just silence and stillness. The stones were gone. We stood there for what felt like hours, waiting for something else to happen. But nothing did. We walked out as the sun began to rise. The forest let us go. This time, it felt like goodbye. It's been 6 months. We live in a city now. No trees, no fog, just traffic and sirens and noise. Sometimes I still see things in the shadows. Sometimes I hear humming when the house is too quiet. But it's less now, like it's fading. Maybe we really ended it. Or maybe it's just waiting for someone else to forget. Part 6, Beneath the Bark. It started again last week. A boy disappeared 2 towns over. Then his father. Then the ranger who went looking for them. No sign of struggle, no tracks. Just abandoned gear and silence. I saw the news online. I told myself not to click, not to care. But something inside twisted. Something that hadn't healed. The same symbol appeared on the missing person flyer. Faint, in the background, like it had been drawn in dust or soot. Only I recognized it. The circle. The gate. Ellie found me packing my bag. She didn't ask questions. She just started packing. 2. We drove through the night. The forest was still there, but it had changed. The trees were thicker, the road narrower. The entire area had been marked off by the state as a restricted conservation site. No entry. Dangerous terrain. It didn't matter. We knew the way in. Except now, the path we remembered didn't exist. The riverbed was dry. The stone clearing overgrown. It was like the forest had reshuffled itself. We wandered for hours, guided only by instinct or something deeper. That's when we found a cabin. It hadn't been there before. It stood alone in a sunless clearing, hunched like something ashamed to be seen. Its wood was blackened, though not burned, and its roof sagged like a tired mouth. The door opened before we touched it. Inside, it was clean. Too clean. No dust, no webs. On the table sat a notebook, open to the middle. Drawings of the old stones, of faces, of trees shaped like hands. A voice spoke from the corner. You came back. We turned. A woman sat in the shadows, her eyes milky with age or something worse. You're not the first. You won't be the last. I asked her what this place was. She smiled. It's where the forest keeps its memory. We backed away. The walls began to pulse, like they were breathing. Ellie whispered, "We need to go." But the woman stood, raising one withered hand. You woke it. You broke its circle. It's hungry now, and it remembers your names. Suddenly, the floor cracked. A root burst through the floorboards, snaking up my leg. Ellie screamed as more erupted around us, reaching, grabbing. I hacked at them with a broken chair leg, pulling Ellie free. We ran. Outside, the forest was alive. The trees shifted, moved, closed ranks behind us. The path we came in on was gone. We ran blindly, breath burning, until we collapsed near what looked like an old well. Ellie was bleeding. The roots had left deep welts on her arm, almost like writing. I leaned closer. It was a symbol, the circle again, but broken this time, splintered, like it was rejecting her. We camped there for the night, too afraid to move in the dark. The forest watched from all sides. At some point, I dozed off. I woke to whispering. Ellie wasn't beside me. I followed the sound, heart racing. I found her standing at the edge of a pond, her feet in the water, eyes glazed. I pulled her back. She fought me, harder than she should have been able to. She screamed a single word before going limp. Below. I dragged her away, sobbing, back to the camp. She was unconscious, but breathing. I wrapped her in my coat and stared into the dark. Something was watching us. I could feel it, not just from the woods, but from beneath. The next morning, Ellie was awake but distant. She wouldn't speak, wouldn't eat. Her eyes kept flicking to the trees like she was waiting for something. Then I found a mark on her neck. Small, faint, but there. A second circle. The same one from the drawing in the diner. And I realized we didn't stop the forest. We split it. We broke its mind. Now it was growing another, and it had chosen Ellie. We needed help, but I didn't know who to trust. The old woman in the cabin had vanished when we returned. No notebook, no trace. But something else waited for us inside. A map drawn in blood, or something close enough. It showed 3 points. The first was a cabin. The second was marked below. The third had no name, just a symbol I hadn't seen before. An eye, surrounded by branches. Ellie pointed at it, without a word. We left again. The trees led us this time. Not in a helpful way, but as if her presence gave them permission. They moved aside just enough. They wanted us to find that place. Hours later, we arrived. A stone door, sunken into a hillside, covered in moss and bone. The air was wrong here. Thick, wet, filled with breathing that wasn't ours. We stepped inside. Darkness swallowed us whole, and the forest followed. Part 7, What Sleeps Beneath. The darkness inside the stone passage was not just the absence of light. It was something denser, older. Our flashlights flickered as if the very air rejected electricity. The tunnel sloped downward, narrowing slightly as we walked, the silence broken only by our steps and Ellie's shallow breaths. The walls were lined with carvings, trees growing upside down, figures kneeling beneath roots, circles within circles. None of it felt human. Ellie touched one of the symbols, her fingers trembling. "I've seen this," she whispered, "in my dreams." The deeper we went, the colder it got. The stone beneath our feet turned damp. Something dripped steadily in the distance, though we never saw the source. Eventually, the tunnel opened into a vast underground chamber. It was not empty. Stone pillars rose like broken teeth on the floor. Between them stood figures. Statues, I thought at first, but as I stepped closer, I saw the skin, the eyes, the expressions of terror frozen on each face. They weren't statues. They were the missing, dozens of them, preserved, trapped, standing in place like prisoners of time itself. Ellie fell to her knees, gasping. Her skin began to glow faintly, the markings on her arm and neck pulsing in rhythm with the air. It felt like the chamber was breathing through her. Then the ground trembled. From the far side of the chamber, a sound like roots tearing through stone echoed toward us. The walls groaned, and something moved. A shape emerged from the shadows. Not an animal, not human, something between. It stood taller than any man, its body cloaked in bark and shadow, its head split by a vertical eye that opened slowly, oozing light like sap. Around its body coiled roots, pulsing like veins. It didn't walk. It grew forward, inch by inch. Ellie stood. It looked at her, and it spoke, not with words, but with a voice inside both our minds. She is the vessel. She bears a mark of breach. I stepped between them, raising the only weapon I had, a hunting knife. It felt laughable in my hand, like holding a toothpick before a hurricane. The creature didn't flinch. The gate was not meant to close. You fractured the root. Now we bleed. Ellie's voice came, soft and dreamlike. What do you want from us? Completion. It raised one arm, and the figures around us began to twitch. Slowly, mechanically. Their mouths opened, silent screams echoing in the thick air. One by one, they turned toward us. They were offerings. Incomplete. But you carried the seed. Ellie collapsed. Her skin steamed. The symbols burned bright. I grabbed her, dragging her back, searching for an exit. There wasn't one. The figures stepped down from their places. Still alive, somehow, their movement stiff, like they hadn't been used in years. They reached for us, eyes empty, hands trembling. One of them spoke. Let it in. Let finish what you started. I hurled a flare from my bag. It sputtered, flared, then exploded into red firelight. The creature reeled back slightly, roots writhing, but not in pain. In delight, it liked the fear. Ellie began to chant. Not in English, not any language I knew, but the room responded. The pillars vibrated. The floor cracked. And then she screamed. From her chest, light poured out, spiraling symbols spinning in the air. The creature lunged, faster than I could react, its bark-covered hand slamming into the light. Ellie's body went limp, but she didn't fall. She hovered. The figure stopped, turned to her, bowed. The creature spoke again. The circle reforms. I screamed her name, reached for her, but a wall of roots exploded between us. Something was changing. The light from Ellie's body was growing, swallowing the chamber in a blinding glow. The creature howled, not in pain, but triumph. Then came a sound like a tree snapping in half. The roots dropped. The light went out. She fell. I caught her just before she hit the floor. She was breathing, barely, but the chamber was silent now. The figures were still again. Empty. The creature was gone. And where it had stood, something remained, a seed. Large, black, pulsing faintly. I should have left it. I didn't. I took it. We carried each other out. The tunnel didn't fight us this time. The forest parted. The light returned. But it didn't feel like victory. Ellie hasn't spoken since that night. And the seed, it's starting to sprout. Part 8. The seed grows. Ellie hasn't spoken in 3 days. She just stares, out the motel window, into nothing. Her skin is pale. Her veins look darker, like roots pressed beneath thin ice. Sometimes she hums a low tune I've never heard before. It doesn't sound human. The seed sits on the table between us, pulsing like a slow heartbeat. I've tried throwing away, burying it, even smashing it. Each time, it ends up back here, right where it started, waiting. Last night, I dreamt of the forest. Only it wasn't a dream. I was beneath it again, in the root chamber. But this time, it wasn't decayed or broken. It was alive, thriving, pulsing with voices, Thousands of them, whispering in languages that brush against my sanity. In the dream, Ellie stood among them, her eyes completely white, her hands outstretched. The roots slithered around her like pets, and from her chest, something grew, a new tree, black and massive, touching the cavern ceiling. When I woke up, the motel walls were damp. The wallpaper peeled like bark. Ellie had vanished. I found her barefoot outside, in the motel parking lot, her eyes fixed on the distant tree line. "They're waiting," she said, her voice barely a breath. "It's almost time." I begged her to come back inside, to tell me what was happening. She touched my chest gently. "You brought the seed. You brought me back. But it doesn't stop. It never stops." I tried calling people, scientists, journalists, even a fringe podcast that once did an episode on cursed woods. No one answered. Those who did never call back. When I checked the news at night, I saw reports of fresh disappearances near the same forest. All of them had one thing in common: strange root patterns in the ground, no signs of struggle, and oily black substance staining the trees. The next day, Ellie began coughing up soil. Not metaphorically. Real, dark soil. The seed pulsed faster. I set up cameras around the motel room. At 3:12 a.m., every one of them shut off for 12 seconds. When they came back on, Ellie was standing directly in front of one, her eyes wide, her mouth open, whispering something over and over again. We break the seal to heal the core. I confronted her in the morning. She didn't remember anything. Not the soil, not the video. But her fingernails were caked with dirt. Her feet were wet. I watched the forest line all day. And then I saw them. Figures, half visible between trees. Not moving, just watching. Ellie said nothing. She only smiled faintly and whispered, "It's almost full." "What is?" I asked. She looked at the seed. The next night, the motel room bloomed. That's the only word for it. Flowers erupted from the walls. Thick vines coiled out of the floor. The air turned humid and green, like we'd been dropped into the middle of some ancient jungle. I tried to run. The door wouldn't open. Ellie stood in the center of the room, her arms out, head back, as if receiving sunlight that wasn't there. She whispered a name I didn't understand, something wet and choking, like the sound of sap draining through leaves. The seed cracked open. From inside, something moved. Not a plant. An eye. It blinked slowly, then rolled toward me. Ellie collapsed. The room returned to normal. The vines were gone. The flowers dead. But the seed remained, open now, revealing a spiral of flesh and bark, winding endlessly inward. Ellie didn't wake for hours. When she did, she looked at me with tears in her eyes and said, "I saw them. All of them. They're buried, waiting for the gate." "What gate?" I asked. She touched her chest. "The one inside me, and inside you." I left her asleep and went back to the forest. I had to see for myself. The entrance was gone. No road. No sign. Only untouched trees. I pushed forward anyway. I walked for hours. No GPS. No compass. Just instinct. And then I found them. More figures. Not statues. Not people. Things growing from the ground. People half absorbed into trees. Their faces screaming in silence. Their skin bark. One of them was still blinking. I ran, and the forest let me go. For now. But I know this won't end here. The seed is just the beginning. And I think Ellie is starting to become something else. Part 9, The Hollow Root. Ellie no longer sleeps. She just stares, sometimes at the window, sometimes at the seed, and sometimes at nothing at all. Her pupils are gone now, faded into a soft, milky white. She speaks less each day, and when she does, it's always in that low, droning chant. We rise where roots remember. We fall where memory rots. She doesn't eat, doesn't drink, but her skin glows faintly beneath her clothes, like something is alive under the surface, moving. I caught a glimpse of it when she changed, veins shaped like branches, pulsing toward her heart. The seed, which had once cracked open, has now completely unfolded into a small black tree, just 1 foot tall. But it shouldn't be alive. It has no soil, no sunlight, yet every day it grows taller. I tried burning it. The flames recoiled. That night, the voices came back, not in dreams, in the walls. They whispered all night, names, locations, descriptions of people I never knew, and one phrase, repeated over and over, "She is the hollow root. Through her we return." I packed our things. I tried to take Ellie away, but the world had already changed. Every direction I drove, the road bent back toward the forest. It didn't matter how many turns I took or how fast I went. Somehow, the trees always found me again. We were trapped, and then the people began appearing. Not alive, not exactly. I saw them from the motel window. Shadows at first, then full figures. Dozens of them, silent, lining the edges of the parking lot. Faces sunken, eyes hollow, like the missing we had seen beneath the forest. But not statues this time. They moved. They watched Ellie. She walked outside to meet them. And they knelt. Every one of them dropped to the ground, arms stretched forward. Ellie didn't say anything. She just stood there, arms raised, as the tree in my hand pulsed harder. And then, for the first time in weeks, she spoke to me with her old voice. "You need to go back to the heart." I didn't want to. I told her we needed to run, hide, destroy it. But she shook her head. "This is bigger than us." It always was. We opened it. Now it has to be sealed, before it finishes what it started. That night, I followed the road into the woods. There was no trail, no signs, just the sound of something calling me deeper. Hours passed, maybe days. Time bent in those trees. I found the stone ring again. Only now, it was overgrown with black vines. The entrance to the root chamber had returned, but the air that flowed from it was hot, sour, like rotting meat. Inside, the path had changed. It pulsed. With each step, I could feel it breathing beneath me. Roots curled and uncurled in the walls. The carvings were no longer still. They moved when I wasn't looking, always forming circles, always watching. At the chamber center, the massive black tree had returned. But this time it wasn't alone. Hundreds of those root walkers stood in silence, surrounding it, each one with bark-fused skin, branches where their ribs should be, and eyes empty as death. And at the base of the tree, Ellie, she stood barefoot, clothed in bark and shadow. Her skin now etched with glowing symbols from head to toe. Her voice was layered, hers, and something older beneath it. "You brought the seed," she said. "It is ready." I held it up. It trembled in my hand, then floated from my palm and slowly descended to the soil before the tree. The forest shook. A groan echoed from the earth. Ellie stepped forward. "The gate has always been open," she said. "But now we must close it." Suddenly, the root walkers turned. As one, their eyes locked on me. Ellie held out her hands. "They'll protect the seal," she said. "But you must bind it with blood. Yours." I stepped forward, heart hammering. At the base of the black tree, a hollow had opened, a place meant for something. A vessel, the seed, or maybe me. Before I could decide, the ground split beneath my feet, and the voice returned. Not Ellie's, the other. "You carry the rot. You carry the breach. You will be the root." Pain exploded in my chest. I fell, and the earth swallowed me whole. Part 10, Rooted Forever. Darkness wrapped around me like thick soil, cold and suffocating. I was buried, yet strangely aware. The heartbeat of the forest pulsed through my veins. The black tree, now towering above me, was no longer just a plant. It was alive, and so was I, but in a way I could barely comprehend. I struggled to move, but my limbs were no longer my own. They felt heavy, rooted into the earth itself. My fingers twisted into bark, my skin cracked and barked over. Somewhere deep inside me, Ellie's voice whispered, fragile and distant, "You are the root, the gatekeeper." I wanted to scream, but the sound was swallowed by the dirt. Instead, I focused on a faint light growing inside me, a seed of hope or perhaps a curse. The root walkers circled above, chanting in a language that had haunted my dreams. Their voices were low and haunting, merging with the creaking of trees, the rustle of leaves. Their hollow eyes glimmered with expectation. Ellie appeared beside me, no longer human, but something between. Her body pulsed with the black tree's energy, her face serene and sad. "We are bound now," she said. "You will protect the forest, the gate, and the balance. We all have a role to play." I remembered the people who had vanished here, swallowed by these woods, turned into statues, then root walkers. Their bodies became the roots, their souls part of the forest's endless hunger. But what had happened to them was not the end. The forest demanded new life, new vessels. My mind drifted back to the world above, to the motel, the seed, the road that refused to let me leave. I realized the forest was not a place. It was a living, breathing entity, growing stronger with each soul it claimed. Ellie reached out, her hand cold but steady. "Will you accept it?" she asked. There was no choice. The moment the seed inside me bloomed, I understood. I was no longer just a man. I was the root. The gate was sealed, but only for now, because the forest never truly dies. It waits. It watches. And when the time comes, it will rise again. And those who vanish in these woods will never really leave. The trees outside whispered secrets no one dared to hear. And I was part of them now, forever rooted in darkness,